Hello, folks. Welcome to the series named The Placement Guide, where we help students to know about the hiring processes of their dream companies. Today, we have a very special guest amongst us whose name is Sajal Kumar. He had earlier done a couple of product design and UI UX internships in Titan, Trell, Build Supply, and many more. Thank you so much, Sajal, for accepting our invitation and coming up to this show. Let's deep dive into your journey. Could you walk us through your journey? Like how did you got interest in design field coming from an engineering background?
Yeah, so hello everyone. It was pretty nice and warm of you, Madhu, to actually call me in this talk. So, yeah, I'm really excited to share my experiences right here. So you talked about, how I did some design internships and how I landed into those internships. So, but before that, I would just like to, share my experience on how I actually got into design. So the first thing was to actually getting to know what design actually is. So my journey started with a couple of design tasks here and there in my first year itself. So I was always into art and design kind of things. But in my first year there was always, in engineering colleges especially, there is always this fest culture, right? So in these fests you get to know many things, and in that particular and in those fests particularly there is a committee which always does creative things, and through by working in those committees, actually I started exploring the design aspect of things. So yeah, so it was the starting point for me to actually begin with design. So it started with designing in Photoshop, Illustrator. It was mostly related to creative design things. After that, after I did all these things in my first year of college, I started exploring further, and through some of my college seniors, I actually got to know about a thing known as UI UX design. So before that, means previously I was doing the creative designing works mostly, which included designing posters, etc., for fest clubs. But after that, I started exploring on the UX aspect of design, which is in a way very different from the conventional design that we see. So yeah, after getting to know about it from some of my seniors, because one of my senior actually went on to become a UX designer. When I was in my first year, he was in his fourth year, and he was doing those kind of things. So he was kind of my initial mentor in that sense. And after that, I started picking up some tasks, did some freelance activities. Yeah, and then after that, I got this very good opportunity to work with my some of my seniors who actually started a small startup from our college itself. So in that, I owned the whole product design. So that was a very good experience, starting sort of a starting point in my UX design journey. So this was about how I explored the field of design mostly. And after that, I started, building my portfolio and applying for internships. Yeah, and luckily I landed into, some good internships. And since then, it has been no looking back, and I have been doing internships. No, this is my currently I'm doing my third internship in product design. I did my first internship with Build Supply when I was in my second year, in the second year of summer of second year. So yeah, I mean, I built my portfolio in my in the summer vacations, which we got after the completion, after our second year completion. I built my portfolio. I applied for internships. It was mostly through Internshala at that point of time. I landed into Build Supply, and it was a very good experience there because I was experiencing professional work for the first time. After Build Supply, that confidence gained new heights because I was professionally trained, and I had experience with working with talented professionals in the industry itself. So after that, based upon my work, I started applying for more internships because it was a COVID time at that time. So no regular offline classes, so I had a lot of time with me. So after that, I applied for more internships. I landed into Trell, and Trell was a whole, it was an experience on another level because I did all the creative activities. And it expanded from UX design to UI design, and also a bit of motion design as well. So in that sense, Trell was a very good experience for my professional career. And after that, I mean, yeah, so in mostly what students do in engineering colleges, they land into only one internship, which is in the third year of their college, and it is for the summer. Yeah. So because I had these experiences, right, I had two internships already in my kitty, and I had that experience as well. So I applied for larger companies or big companies, which conventionally do not take people who do not have a conventional design degree when they're hiring for these positions. But since I had that professional experience already, I mean, I had done two internships with some reputed companies, so I mean that helped my case. And yeah, since then, yeah, I have been contributing to Titan, which is under the directly portfolio of companies. And yeah, it as far as means this internship is concerned, I am learning a lot, and yeah, still exploring things. It has been a good experience up till now.
So the journey really seems very interesting. So you started from helping in the college fest,
Yeah.
then working together with your seniors in a startup, and eventually you then explored different internship options and did one after another multiple internships.
Yeah. Yes.
So how do you see the scope and importance of design fields in the future?
Yeah, so actually, this is a very good question because people do not actually understand what many people do not understand what UX designers do. So, contrary to the beliefs, UX designers don't always focus on the aesthetics bit, because people, when they hear design, right? So people think that, oh, they designers mostly draw and color stuff, but it is not like that. I mean, UX design involves a lot of rational thinking, critical thinking, and problem solving as well. So that is a sort of a misconception with people that UX designers also do the same thing what the normal designers do, right? And the importance of design itself, because we are seeing this startup culture popping up in India, and in general also. People are actually focusing a lot on the UX side of things, because there are people available in India for tech, there are people available for marketing and all those kind of conventional things sort of. But this field is relatively new to India, and this matters a lot because you are engaging with users, and your product's user experience should be top notch when you're when you are operating in such competitive markets and environment. So that is why it is very important nowadays, and people are valuing it a lot more than what it used to be, like 5 to 10 years. I mean, not even you don't have to even go back. I mean, it's since 5 or 6 years this UX space is right now booming. And the other aspect that I would like to talk about is the UX design, the field in general does not require so much of a conventional degree, because it is relatively new. Many colleges that even teach design, they do not teach UX design in specific. It would be graphic design related, or industrial design, or interaction design. So people, means the industry is still very open. You cannot you Even if you do not have a conventional degree in this field, if you have the right set of skills, I mean, you are most welcome in any organization, and they would value you.
Completely agree. We can see like there is a lot of demand of the design related people in the startup in India, and
Yeah.
also we see that how important is user interface and user experience nowadays. Like we see that we all love to use WhatsApp because of its simple interface, but we don't like to use complex apps like Discord or some other ones.
Yeah, exactly.
So, can you also elaborate about difference between UI and UX and the different career options present in design related fields?
Yeah, sure. So people always say whenever position comes, or even people might have seen those job openings which reads UI slash UX design. So actually UI is in a way a subset of UX. So when you are hiring for a UX design, means when any organization needs a person who is specialized in UI, creating those user interfaces, they might list the job opening as UI design, right? But there is means in India this terminology has been abused so much, that UI slash UX design. But I don't think there is a need to it. Either you are a UX designer or a UI designer. So I would tell you the difference, that in UI design, the designer mostly focuses on how to create aesthetically beautiful interfaces, right? And by that I mean is easy to use interfaces, no and it should be intuitive to the user. There is not so much rational thinking, I would say, which is involved in UI design as much as it is involved in UX design. So in UX design it is more about the process, right? So you do not actually go and just create a UI design whenever you get a product requirement or anything like that, or a product feature requirement. You do your own research, you talk to the users, right? And you do some competitive analysis, and you evaluate every possible idea in your ideation process. You think as radically as possible, thinking out your ideas loud, and then maybe convert. And all these ideas are actually diverging. So after a stage, you have all these diverging ideas, you actually want to start converging them. I mean, it could depend upon technical feasibility, it could depend on many other aspects, I mean, from the sales point of view as well. So the all these things you need to consider before converging into I wouldn't say ideal, but more rationally possible outcomes or solutions. So this entire methodology which is used, and this entire process that designers use in organizations, is actually called the design process. And mostly it is done by the UX designers only. I mean, there are several other stakeholders involved, like product managers, developers also. They tell you about the technical feasibility and the technical side of things. So when you are doing this process which focuses more on the user's feedback and usability, all those things, these processes are mostly done by the UX designers. And after your ideation process, when you have double down on various aspects, design, wireframes, all those things, then after that step, the UI or the visual designers come in, who actually make your solution aesthetically beautiful, intuitive. That would be actually finally presented to your user. So that is why they are called as UI designers. But in India, what we see in general, because there is a very high demand for these kind of designers, so you'd mostly come across people who are doing the UX stuff and the UI stuff as well. So that is why this term comes. This might be a common term of using UI slash UX slash UI designer, or UI slash UX designer. But in general, if anybody does all of it, you can just name them as UX designer. But if someone just focuses on the visual design bit, you might call them a UI designer. And nowadays there are many other terminologies that are being used. I mean, people post their jobs, their job titles as product designers. So people say that in product design all the things are included. I mean, UX, UI, motion design as well. So terminologies may change, but the core crux of it is mostly UX and UI are a bit different in nature. But UI comes after UX, after you have done your research, after you have talked to the users, yeah. So this is the means, I would say, the difference between UI and UX, if somebody asks me.
Yeah, completely agree. Like in India, the use of terminologies is not that clear.
Yeah,
And as you said, UX is mostly related to the user journey, understanding their needs and
yeah,
all those aspects, whereas UI is mostly related to the aesthetics and uh, easy to use
yeah,
interface.
interface, yes.
So, like, which are the common design tools that you use during your work?
So yeah, so the tools in the design industry is also a big debate nowadays, because some people say that to be a UX designer you do not need to have a mastery on the tools. But I would in a way disagree with that, because tools actually help you enable uh, to be more uh, what what could we say? I mean, tech savvy, or in that sense that it enhances your entire process of doing things. So nowadays it's mostly Figma, and Figma is a UI. I wouldn't say a UI design tool. It is a design tool in general. Nowadays, I have seen people designing invoices also in Figma. So you cannot really label it as only UI design to a UI design tool. So it is a design tool in general. Nowadays they also have features for creating empathy maps, creating user journeys. They have another feature to Figma. We have another feature to Figma which is known as FigJam. If anybody might have used Miro board, Whimsical, those kind of research oriented softwares in which you can document all your research, all those things. So now Figma has also launched that feature. It is known as FigJam. So mostly, yeah, I mean, in organizations, and also one more advantage with Figma is it is collaborative in nature. So like GitHub, I mean, GitHub is collaborative in nature for developers, right? So that is the same thing with Figma. Many designers from the same organizations can actually collaborate on while they are doing any project. So that is why Figma is has now become a standard tool in the industry right now. And most of the organizations, I mean, in the three organizations that I have till now worked with, Figma has been, yeah, so Figma has been the primary tool that we have been using. There are also tools like Adobe XD. I mean, some people might have heard this software's name, Adobe XD, and there is also a software known as Sketch, which is an Apple's product. So yeah, I mean, these tools are more or less very similar in how you use them. I mean, the layout and the UI is also very similar. So if you know a particular tool, if for example, if you know how to use Adobe XD, it is very highly likely that you would be able to easily use Figma as well. So that is why even if any another new competitor comes into this market of design tool, they would most probably keep their UI similar to what we already have, because nobody wants a sudden change or an abrupt change. So yeah, I mean, yeah, so that is the thing about tools. Mostly, yeah, Figma, Adobe XD, Sketch. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like that nowadays most of the companies are trying to develop some kind of super app where they try to do many other functions also, like you said, invoices and other functions done
Yeah,
by
yeah.
Figma.
So Figma in that sense is very interesting, because nowadays people are using it for creating subtle animations also. I mean, I've seen people using Figma to create 3D illustrations as well. And now Figma is actually upping up its game by a lot. I mean, they are introducing features through which it would be very comfortable for the developers as well. I mean, there is a always there is a handoff problem when you are switching from design to development. So when the designers actually are done with their work, whenever they have created those high fidelity UI design mockups, so now the developer has to actually build that thing, right, after taking after seeing those interfaces. They have to actually build it. So many a times there is a problem that, okay, so there might be a constraint related to technical feasibility, or the things which designers do not consider, those edge cases or use cases might pop up when it is in development phase. So Figma in that sense, I mean, it is going more on developer designer friendliness in that sense. So I think that is now their primary goal which they are working upon. So I mean, yeah, let's see what's in the future.
Yeah, it seems really interesting how Figma is bridging the gap between developers and designers
Yeah.
and work together in a collaborative manner. So can you tell some resources which would be helpful to any beginners related to design skills?
Hmm. So yeah, I mean, YouTube is a best friend because YouTube is completely free, and I mean, there isn't something which is not on YouTube, I would say. But the only thing with YouTube is, I mean, it is a bit distracting in nature, because obviously we all know how YouTube works, right? So, but I would really and strongly suggest that start with YouTube. Whatever the topics that you want to actually explore, even there are free courses and free playlists available on UX UI design in YouTube itself. So I would strongly recommend people, if you want to start your UX or design journey in general, they uh, to actually go to YouTube and try these videos out, learn from yourself, because it's mostly self learning. After you feel that, after you're confident enough that okay, so I know, means to a certain extent, then maybe you are in a position to actually pay for those paid courses which are available on Coursera and Udemy. So I think, means for me personally, when I was into my journey of learning about UX design, I did the same thing. I went to YouTube, and when I felt that okay, now I'm in a position that I could actually take a professional course, right? So after that point of time, I actually purchased those Udemy courses. I think Udemy courses are very cheap in nature, and means especially when there is an offer going on, you can just buy Udemy courses below 500, right? So Udemy courses are very cheap. Coursera, I think it's more on a higher side. But I mean, yeah, those courses in Udemy and Coursera are also worth it, and because in YouTube you have to be self diligent. I mean, you have to learn yourself, you have to practice yourself. But in Udemy you get that flexibility, that there are some tasks as well in those courses, so you can actually test your knowledge. So I would definitely recommend people to buy those courses, but I would not recommend people to directly go and buy those courses before doing their own before actually getting acclimatized with design initially. So I would suggest people to go on YouTube and then maybe switch to paid courses. And after that, I mean, you could after building up your portfolio, I mean, in portfolio is a very important aspect in the whole design industry. So after you build that, you might want to have just internships under your belt, and internships is the best way to test your knowledge, increase your knowledge, and everything beyond that. Yeah.
Yeah, completely agree. Even I also, whenever I wanted to learn any new skills like related to startups, design, finance, anything, I just go on to the YouTube and find out several channels and start learning through them. And once after learning through them, it's a good idea to explore other forums like Coursera, Udemy, or even some books related to those topics.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
can you tell how did you build your portfolio and how did you approach to different companies for getting internships?
Yeah. So for the portfolio bit, I would strongly recommend people to work on some real life project. And by real life project, I mean is not those redesign concepts. I see many people nowadays take up any app, like for example they take up Swiggy or Netflix, something like that. And it is mostly common with developers also. Like people, when they're doing, they just build clones of these apps, like Swiggy clone bana diya, and they build this Netflix clone, etc. So in design also there is a trend that people take up this very famous softwares or applications, and they just mimic it, or and they just slightly change some aspect, and just list the reasoning key. Okay, this was the reason I changed this design a bit. So I would strongly recommend people that do not do this thing. I mean, people can, obviously you can do a redesign concept, but I would recommend people to build real life products and design for real life products. So the thing with my portfolio was I had already done the QME project in my college, and the QME project wasn't any college specific project or something like that, because me and my seniors were actually building for which was to serve the people of Patna. And obviously, QMIT didn't work out eventually, and it failed sort of. But that entire the process of product design, it was very practical in nature, because we were trying to cover all those practical cases and real life in general. So that is, I think that was the point, or that was the aspect that actually helped me with my design interview when I was interviewing with organizations for internships, because it was a real life project. I could actually defend my thought processes, all my rationals that I applied during that project. Even if you are wrong at that time, I mean, they are not looking for people who are right every time. I mean, no one can be like that. But at least you thought about the real life situation and actually, try to solve for it. So I would recommend people to have these, real life projects in their portfolios. And and if they, and to get started with these kind of real life projects, I mean, it is easy to say that, start with real life projects, but somebody might, you have to actually have that opportunity to create those real life projects. In my case, I was, lucky enough that QME happened in my college itself, so it gave me an opportunity. But if you do not have that, you can look around you. I mean, people mostly in engineering colleges, there are a ton of problem, right? Even in our college, there is a cycle issue, then there is this automation issue, so much issues, right? And these are actually real life issues. So design can always chip in, and you can use design, the concept of the entire process of design thinking, and actually solve for these problems. So I would recommend people that they follow this approach. And if you have any freelance opportunities to, even if it is very less, even if people pay very less for those projects, I mean, go for it, because you are just starting out and money shouldn't be a factor initially, right? So in those freelance activities, also, it's more or less, real life in nature. I mean, you're solving for some real world problem. So those projects also could come in handy when you are creating your portfolio. So put these practical, real life projects into your portfolio, and it actually speaks volume of your portfolio, because whenever recruiters see real life projects in your portfolio, they are actually impressed by that, because they have seen so many portfolios, right? They have reviewed so many portfolios, and mostly it is all any redesign stuff or some random stuff that people do. But whenever they see this unique thing, they are actually, triggered in a way to, have start a conversation with you. You might not end up with that with the opportunity or the internship, but that first call, that is very important when your portfolio is being reviewed. So to crack that thing, you must have, or should have those practical life projects in your portfolio. So that is the thing about creating a portfolio. And I just forgot about the second question that you asked, so could you just repeat?
Yeah, the second part was that after building a portfolio, how did you approach different companies for
Okay, yeah.
internships and what
Hmm.
type of questions were asked in the interview?
So this is the means next step after you are done with your portfolio. So I would say, in my personal experience, start using those social media platforms. And by social media platforms, I do not means, Instagram or Facebook or anything like that. It should be focused. It should be focused on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a professional networking platform, and you should be a master in using LinkedIn for networking. And people always confuse this concept of networking on LinkedIn as just sending connections and building your connection base. But it should not be like that, and it is not like that. So what I mean by networking on LinkedIn, you can just interact with people whose work you love. So in my case, I was starting out in design. Look for who are the, leaders in design. Look for the apps that you love, and who are behind designing those apps. So for example, there is a, renowned designer whose name is Saptarishi Prakash, and he's the design director of Swiggy. So for I'm giving this just for an example, that if you love his work, you can, follow Saptarishi and his work on LinkedIn. And whenever he posts something insightful, and whenever he sort of, posts his opinions on LinkedIn, you can just try to interact with such posts. You can go to comment section, and before actually interacting with these kind of people, you have to have that knowledge, because for interacting also, you should have that knowledge of engaging in a conversation. So that will also help you to gather more knowledge. And also, after interacting, they would, in a way, I mean, they would remember you, not by name, but they would just, remember that, oh, this guy just interacted with me, and there was his point of view that he just posted. and started a conversation. So when I say networking, so this is the type of networking that you need to do. Engage with fellow designers, engage with designers from the organizations that you would want to work for. And so this was about networking. And then after that, you might want to approach people, and by approaching I mean, when you're sending connection requests, so there is a feature in LinkedIn which lets you add a note while you're sending connection requests. So, and it has the character limit of, I think, 300 characters or something like that. I mean, it is very crisp, and it is very short in nature. So you can frame those notes. Just stick to the point. I mean, just say hello or hi, something like that, and just write the purpose of you sending them a connection request. It might be working for their organization, looking for an internship opportunity, things like that. And most of the times it happens that for example, if you are sending 50 connection requests, or 50, you are trying to engage with 50 people, there's a high chance that you would only be able to convert 5 of them. But I mean, that is also enough, right? Because you are just starting out and you're just looking for that one little opportunity. And if you are even able to convert that 1%, I think it is enough. And of course, so this was the about networking and how to reach out people on LinkedIn. I mean, I had also done a session on networking on Creator Club. So if anybody is interested or in the details of it, they might just want to have a look at that. And the other would be to go to platforms such as Internshala. So I know that this is a point of debate, because people say that in Internshala there most companies are kind of fraud, and you do not get good opportunities. Right, but I mean, you are still looking out for your first opportunity, and there is a lot of information available on LinkedIn of any particular organization. So whenever you see an opportunity on Internshala that you feel skeptical about, you can always look that company up in LinkedIn and see what they are doing and for how long they have been operating, what is the amount of employees. So that bit of research you can always do from your end. And in Interchala, I think at least for the getting your at least for getting that first opportunity, I think it is enough, because I got into my first internship at Build Supply through Internchala only. Obviously, after that, I had that experience. I started getting more responses in LinkedIn itself, because I had that experience in my bag. So I started getting more responses, and I started interacting with more people. So that actually helped me to bag the next internships that I did. It was Trell and at Direct Eye. So Direct Eye Titan. So they were mostly through LinkedIn, but my first one was through Internshala. So I would just recommend people to use these platforms also. So I used Internshala, but there are more. There is for freelance, I think there is a platform known as Fiverr or something like that. I do not remember the name exactly. And there is this platform known as Angel List. I think you might be familiar with that. And mostly all the startups actually are at Angel List, and they keep regularly keep posting their requirements. So yeah, so this is the kind of approach that people can take.
Yeah, it's really a nice framework that you shared how to actually connect with people on LinkedIn and other forums instead of just sending them
Yeah.
connection request and just to increase your followers or
Mhm.
connection numbers. And can you also tell any questions that were asked to you in your interview at Trell or Titan after
Okay.
you reached out
Yeah.
to them?
Yeah. So in the design interview process, it is more or less it is similar. So I would just tell you, because I had done 3 internships and faced many more interviews, design interviews, in my journey till now. So the first thing that I think occurs is that the HR might just call you. I mean, based on your portfolio, the portfolio that you have created. So if there is any opening, you apply for it, and they ask you to type your or enter your portfolio link. So you send that portfolio link, and their design team or their professionals might have a look in your portfolio, and if they like you, they would just shortlist you. When you get shortlisted, the HR would just call you, and there is this brief introductory call. So it is not technical or anything design related. It's mostly about you and what you like. It's just a basic introduction. After that, the first round that normally takes place is the portfolio review interview. So in that, you go to the interview in which you have to present one of your case studies or one of your projects from your portfolio. So you present that project to whoever is the interviewer, and then they ask question based upon the project that you have presented. So that is how your portfolio review interview goes. So and this is, I mean, this round is uh, constant, and this is done by every other organization. So this is constant, and then after that, they and the next round, it depends. I mean, some organizations give you a little design task, so they might give you 2 to 3 days of time. They give you a problem statement just to just to be sure that whatever you have presented in your portfolio and whatever skills you have listed in your resume, to check those and to make sure that you actually possess them. They would give you a design task, and you will be given a time frame, 2 to 3 days mostly, and you have to do that design task and submit that to the organization, and they evaluate that design task and come back at you. So if they do not like it, I mean, I think that's the end of the interview process. They would just let you know, and if you get selected, you clear that second round. But in some companies, what they do is, after you have submitted the assignment, there is one more now round of in-person interview, virtually or physically, in which you have to present your assignment that you did in last 2 days or last 3 days, and they would again ask you question based on why you took a certain decision, what was the rationale behind taking a certain approach, all those things. So this is a kind of optional. If they are satisfied with your work in your assignment, I mean, they would just go ahead, or just to be more sure, they would interview you on the basis of the assignment that you have done. And there is also a third kind of a round in which, and this is very rare, I mean, very few organizations, and this round is mostly for senior professionals, because senior professionals might not want to have that design assignment round, because they might be serving notice period, or they might have some important work or something like that. So with internships, I think 2 to 3 rounds, which I mentioned, these are the common norm. But there is also a round called a whiteboarding round. So by whiteboarding round, I mean is, you would just enter into the interview, and there's a blank piece of whiteboard. They would give you the problem statement, and within 20 to 30 minutes, you have to just it isn't something final, or you have to create a very precise solution or something like that. You just have to call out your ideas loud. You might want to do some random sketching, and also talk about your ideas about that particular problem statement. So they just want to see how you approach a particular problem, how you actually visualize that problem. So this is the whiteboarding round, and it mostly happens in person. You are given a marker, and you just take that whiteboard and do your stuff. And there's a lot of back and forth going on. So the interviewer might ask you some questions in between. You might want to answer them in the process as well. So this is the whole thing about whiteboarding round, and nowadays it happens virtually also. So they might give you a task, and you have to brainstorm your ideas, approach that particular problem statement on Figma itself. So yeah, I mean, that was about whiteboarding round. So these are mostly the common design interviews and the types of design interviews in the entire hiring process.
I think it would be really helpful to know about these interviews for a large number of people.
Yeah.
One very common question that we always get, that how one can improve their creativity, because most people feel that they are not creative person.
I mean, when it comes to creativity, is very subjective, right? Because uh, and I think I mentioned this point as well, means this point earlier as well. Nowadays, you would see a lot of people redesigning stuff. Whatever actually exists, they might want to just add their bit to it. And no, so here I think it is means fine in some cases, but I recommend people to actually whenever you find any problem that you are facing, right, while you are using maybe your favorite product or maybe something that you love using, and maybe after that, after experiencing that problem, you might just look up in the internet that is there any existing solution to it. Maybe the existing solutions could be better. Maybe I could just enhance the entire experience of it. So these kind of things, when you experience, you can take this up as challenges and try to solve for it. So maybe you are not considering the technical constraints, maybe you're not considering the business side of it. I mean, you are not in an organization, right, at that point of time. But still, I mean, uh, you can do your research and actually try to solve these kind of problems at your level, at least at your level. So I think this will help you enhance or take up your creativity, enhance your creativity in that sense. I mean, people nowadays, I see a lot of people writing posts on LinkedIn that about a certain approach that you could just follow. So there are apps that we use, right? There are some we use some apps that we just love. So you can go to Play Store and you can see all the customer feedback or the reviews that people post, right? If it is a very famous app, there could be a ton of reviews, a ton of feedback that people give. So you can actually look this up and actually try to solve some of those problems. If you do not have a problem statement already with you, and if you experience some problems, you can actually try to solve it. Discuss this with many people. So if you call in college, if you are facing any problem, so I remember that when in 2019, when we got enrolled into our college, so the entire registration process, I think it took 5 to 6 hours of physical documentation, and it was a very painful process. But see now how things changed. I mean, in our college specifically, after the COVID hit, people couldn't go in offline mode or physically to the college for the registration. But they actually, I mean, I'm not saying that they built something which is very good or it is very intuitive, but actually they tried that version of automating those things, creating those forms, so it could be easier for people to do it virtually. And I am assuming that mostly the students helped it, help with these concepts. So this is a kind of approach that you might wanna take while you are trying to enhance your creativity and trying to think about ideas.
Yeah, so to summarize, one needs to be really well aware of the different things around oneself, and also to be curious to
Yeah,
think in different
curiosity.
ways and discuss with other people on that topic. So, one final question. Any
Mhm.
last message that you would like to give to all our viewers who are interested in this field?
Yeah, so the message that I want to give to the people who are just beginning are starting out their journey in this field, I would say, and most of these people are from non-traditional or the non-design backgrounds, right? Mostly it's from engineering, some people from marketing, these kind of people. So if we do not have a very streamlined process into how to get your first design job or your first design internship, because in development not development, I mean in the software industry, it nowadays has become very streamlined, right? You have to do some CP, you have to do you have to go to platforms and do some certain questions, and it is a very streamlined process. There are a ton of people to actually guiding you. There are these didis and bhaiyas nowadays on LinkedIn, and they will you know put this entire streamline this entire process of how to get into your dream jobs and things like that. But in design, it is at not at that, it hasn't reached at that stage right now. And mostly people have to figure it out themselves. I mean, you can get some help from YouTube and some courses, but it's mostly up to you on how you figure this process out. So I would strongly recommend people that don't just give in. I mean, I know that when you're reaching out to people, when you're networking, there might be times that nobody just reaches back at you, or nobody responds. So those point of time, at those times you might feel low, right? And just hang in there. I mean, if you are good, if you have developed skills that actually might add value to some organization, there must be an organization, I mean somewhere around there, that would actually value your skills and actually hire you. And with internships, it is even better because people are not looking for someone, a specialist, or someone with very polished skills. So I mean, yeah, so these are the aspects in design industry that could be beneficial to you. So I just recommend people to hang in there, don't give in, and yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so mainly since the industry is quite unstructured, perseverance is the key to success for
Yes.
any people who is interested into this industry. Thank you, Sajal, for coming to our channel and sharing your experience. I hope that it would be really helpful to a lot of the students. Thank you.
Thanks, Madhur. Yeah, I just loved interacting with you, and thanks for giving me this opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you.